Well, there it is, folks. Starbucks to close stores and cut 900 jobs in a $1 billion restructuring. Right there it is. Who here is surprised in this in the slightest? I'm not. This is something we've been kind of following here on the program for a bit. Well, for a while now, just with Starbucks as a whole, as a maturing industry, but also, frankly, how they are a good bellwether for what's going on in the economy as a whole, because their business model is in disposable income. I have extra cash that isn't set for rent, utilities, etc. Things for like Maslow's, right? The food, water, clothing, shelter, but technically food, right? So we've been kind of tracking their overall sales performance, where they're at for a while, but also just on the culture piece, what they've been struggling with as well, and what it's showing up, and the goodwill with the customers and everything. It's just been this whole thing. So we're going to be looking at this with Starbucks today as far as closing stores, and then we got some other things we want to look at. A WORKSLOP. I did a previous video on this a little bit ago, but I think it's interesting that it's starting to get a little bit more coverage. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that, as well as we've got one more thing at the end where we're talking about employer-employee relationship thing, which I found to be pretty interesting. So specifically around bathroom utilization. It's an interesting story. So before we get into that, my name is Ryan Howell. I'm a business coach who works out of West Michigan, around the country. I come here live on YouTube pretty consistently every single day, just sharing information I share with my clients, and I hope to earn your subscriptions. So let's get into this here. Links, as always, are going to be in the description for all of these items that we're talking about. So as we mentioned, Starbucks is from Axios, is closing stores, cut 900 jobs, and a $1 billion restructuring. Now, this is significant enough for Starbucks to have filed this with the SEC, where this is just something that investors need to be aware of, and that's why they are putting this out here. I don't have the details necessarily on the filing per se, but this is kind of where the deets are. Well, I'm sure we're going to get over the coming days, or at least over the next week or so, the list of Starbucks locations that are going to be closed down. And you can pretty much bet they're going to be in urban centers where they've got a Starbucks within a couple blocks of each other. They're going to find a way to close one or two of those, right? That's typically what's happening here. I don't expect this to be the one-off in a town where it's the only Starbucks. I don't think that'll be the case, but we'll see what that looks like. All right, let's take a look here. Why does this matter? Again, Axios. I do like the way that they do. I've always loved Axios and the way that they're, compartmentalize and summarize this information. I always recommend go check out the actual data, though. That is super important. Now, why it matters: the company is deep in a turnaround after prolonged sales decline. Now, CEO Brian Nickel, in a memo to employees Thursday morning, said the cuts were part of a long-term revamp. I just want to be clear on this. So Brian Nickel here, he already got his bonus last year for the work that he quote unquote did, and now there's even more. And it was quite a bit of money. It was $96 million or something for his bonus plus his pay for last year. And now they're continuing to have same store sales go down. They are restructuring, obviously, with the cuts in people, but also, closing these stores. So that's saying something. Now, during the review, we identified coffee houses where we're unable to create the physical environment our customers and partners expect, or where we don't see a path to financial performance, and these locations will be closed. So there's a lot to unpack just in that statement. Where we're unable to create the physical environment our customers and partners expect. These are going to be the smaller locations that they don't actually have enough area for seating. This is all to-go places. And then we don't see a path to financial performance, where, and these are the ones that have been identified. They're not making money. Now, what we're seeing more and more with Starbucks as well is that their margins continue, their sales are up, but their margins are continuing to compress, like they're shrinking. And the overall same store, while the sales percentage are up, traffic is down, and that is not changed in the last year and a half, almost 2 years. I think it's 6-7 quarters now where there has been a slowdown in traffic, foot traffic in, across Starbucks as a whole. And that's in North America. They're expanding into China and Asia and everything like that. That's still going on, but where they're at currently, there's an issue here. Now, I did not say how many stores would be closed, and the company did not specify in an SEC filing either. Like I said, this will be coming up here. Nickel did say that overall North American company operated stores would decline about 1% in fiscal 2025, accounting for openings and closures. So let's see how many Starbucks stores are in the US. There are 18,300, okay, that they're looking at. So let's do that. Let's go back to this. So it's 1%, 183 stores. So they're gonna close around 200 stores in the this year. That's about where the math works out to. That's not an insignificant amount. Now, Nichols said layoffs would be non-retail roles, and the company would also eliminate some positions. Again, the stock market's going to do with this as they see fit here. Now, this is, you know, one of those things is just as far as pressing that folks need to remember. So Starbucks is just one of those bellwether companies. It's not the same as Walmart, where Target is more of a bellwether when it comes to that side of the retail, where people are more likely, you know, when sales are increasing in Starbucks, people have, you know, they feel more confident about their finances in the future. Right? That's one of the things that you can do that happens with Starbucks, because it's disposable income. And when this disposable income is shrinking, as it has been, what we end up with is the situation where we're at, which is, you know, folks are not spending as much. They're finding alternatives, you know, probably making more coffee at home, or they, instead of going 5 days a week to get their coffee, maybe they're down to 3. You know, those things all add up over time, and that's what we're seeing. Target is an example in the retail environment where the shopping is just down as a whole, where folks are not going to Target and the value isn't there for them to do the shopping. I'd be interested to see the Kohl's numbers. That's actually where when I'm looking at retail, that's where I like to spend my time at, is, okay, is this the spot where we're really seeing this type of, where we're seeing the change? And that would be my expectation. Okay, so that's where we're at with the Starbucks piece. Let's get on our next spot here, which is going to be on to another one from Axios. I just love this title here. AI WORKSLOP sabotages productivity, study finds. We talked about this a couple days ago on the channel, where everyone hates how you're using AI. Like, that was really it. So it's interesting to see this piece coming out here. But I hadn't heard it called WORKSLOP. This is an interesting piece, so I want to kind of bring that up to everybody right now. Like, this is a something that's out there. So AI is supposed to make work easier, but instead has generated a new problem, WORKSLOP. Why it matters. The term coined by researchers describe low-quality AI-generated content, memos, reports, and emails that's clogging up employees' lives and wasting their time. What they're saying. So WORKSLOP appears polished but lacks real substance. Right, researchers from Stanford University who collaborated with BetterUp. Now, and here's an example I'm going to share on here. Like, this is something that we're seeing across the board, where people are just simply going to Claude, they're going to ChatGPT, Gemini, whoever, Croc, whichever one you use. They're asking for information, they're getting it back, and they're just saying that's gospel and that's what it is. When in reality, what you need to be using them like is a research assistant, right? The research assistant is going to get your information, bring it to you. Then it's your responsibility to review and validate whatever assumptions and whatever information they put in front of you. You know, I have some code written for when I get new clients that come through to use my value builder system. If you're interested in learning about how I help businesses grow faster than they ever thought possible, go and check out summitbusinessguides.com. But when, you know, people submit and they do their value builder assessment to see how well they're building, their businesses are structured for sale, I get an email. With that email, I've already got code written to where it kicks out research on the individual, the company, and then sets up everything that I had a real assistant doing now, which would take them a couple days, does it for me in like 7 minutes. But that first piece that comes in is just my starting point for then me to go and validate the research and just make sure that it's all relevant before I meet with that client. Okay, so I still have that responsibility. I just can't take what Claude gives me as gospel. Okay, and that's what they're getting into here. We're seeing this. Again, you might recall a feeling of confusion after opening a document, followed by frustration. You begin to wonder if simply used AI to generate large blocks of text instead of thinking it through. And that's called WORKSLOP. By the numbers, in the last 2 months, researchers surveyed about 1,200 adults who described themselves as desk workers about their experiences with WORKSLOP. They didn't name the term, but merely defined it. 40% said they've encountered this stuff in the last month, slowing down their workday, right? Because we got to go through and review it. They reported spending an average on 1 hour and 56 minutes. That's very specific, dealing with each instance. That's probably not quite right, but you know, that's so 2 hours for every time they come across this stuff. Real costs, again, what we're looking at as far as efficiency in research does not mean it is showing up in productivity in the workplace. And that's one of the things that I'm talking about with my clients on. Ooh, the chair just decided to do a thing there. One of the things I'm talking about with my clients on is that, hey, just because we've got, we're using AI and it doesn't necessarily translate into productivity in the way that you think it should, right? We've removed the data entry piece, but it's not the, this magic perfect answer to everything. Specifically, it doesn't solve the problem that you run into when you have taking that research and then making it consumable for people to be able to utilize. There's like, for instance, I do a lot of work with my clients where I will create infographics, of the data that I present, right? It's going to be like, hey, and you can tell Claude to, hey, summarize this, this data and create a interactive infographic that I can use for my clients, right? And I'll put that out there and say it in that way. And it does create a decent infographic that makes it easier to digest. However, when I send that to them, I also am going to send them summary notes and a bibliography of all of the relevant, documents, websites, etc., that I use to formulate this information after I validate it. Okay, that is the steps that aren't being done here, and it is a concern that most business owners are having right now, because their folks are using AI as a cheat, right? I'm gonna say as a cheat, they're integrating it as we want them to do within their work. However, we have not set the guardrails and the boundaries up that we need to have in order for people to be successful in what they're doing. Like that's one of the bigger worries right now, is that we have individuals who are, again, they're simply just saying, hey, ChatGPT said it, so it must be true here, and I've done my job, right? They want to get this done and off so they can go on to the next task, and that is not good. We are running into all sorts of problems here. The other thing too is it goes back into colleagues. They work on, on WORKSLOP centers. I talked about this in the previous video, where when I'm old enough to remember when we started using Excel more and more in business. I'm 46, and when I was younger, we really started using Excel in more and more business functions. And my bosses kept saying, hey, we need you to show your work on this, because we don't see your calculations, right? Because they didn't understand the formulas that were in the background of the cells, right? Well, which was fine. I said, okay, here I can show you all the the work and everything, and eventually people came to trust it. But you had to validate all of your formulas and double check to make sure that was there. And what we're running into here is the slop that people are now, again, this WORKSLOP, which is your AI created work, that it's not there because it's lower quality from what people are used to and what they expect. So they talk here of those using AI, 18% admitted sending AI generated content that was unhelpful, low effort, or low quality, which was simply just, I just want to get this off of my desk and get it onto the next person. They can figure out what they need to be useful out of that. And that is the exact opposite of what we're supposed to be doing with business. And frankly, it's the opposite of what we should be using AI, these large language models, for. Again, large language models, when they are used to their best ability within a business, within an organization, they are research assistants that are going to get you information that you need to validate, make sure it's relevant, and then turn it into a digestible form of some sort. What I think a lot of people are not looking for, they're not looking forward to the fact that they have to go back into school mode, and they're creating reports, like they need to look at it like they're doing book reports or a research report that they did in school. You have to include all of your your citations for what you have. It's extremely important, and folks are not doing that. So hold on one second. All right, there's that. Okay. So other things that we're looking at here, and I want to make sure that we are, obviously respecting your time on this here, is what we can do on this, right? And they don't necessarily get into here. Here's the deal. When they talk about how I'm talking with my clients on how to manage this WORKSLOP, and frankly, just using large language models. And when I'm talking with my clients, what we are recommending, what I'm recommending and what we're doing is making it a policy within the organization that you will include a works cited with any report you're sending up. So there will be a list of here's everything that we got this from. We want a summary page, quick little summary page, which you can have the AI help you with. Once you say, this is the only pertinent data I want you to utilize, create a summary for this, then the narrative, then the works cited, right? Real simple stuff, but that's the policy we're putting into place, and we need to train people to ensure that they understand how to use it in that way, okay? Once you do that, now you can set the expectation and people can adjust their work accordingly. So that's really what we're doing at. And again, I cannot recommend that higher recommendation than setting a policy, setting the expectation, train your folks, and have them go that route. Okay. All right. So next one we have on here is it's just a little bit different, a little something just kind of in the end of the program up with here today is I saw this from Your Tango. I just kind of laugh about it a little bit, but let's see here. We got a worker gets an email from her boss scolding her for taking bathroom breaks above the team average. So a couple things there is one, who the heck is keeping track of the bathroom breaks? But two, this is pretty wild. Just the fact someone's got the audacity to say, hey, you're going to the bathroom too much. Look at it. She's like, man, I got medication, has me use the restroom. All right, so let's see what this, and I think it's going to be, that's really what we got to say here. All right. Most of us have had the distinct displeasure of working for a micromanager at one point or another, but even at their worst, our bosses were probably never standing outside the staff washroom with a stopwatch and a notepad. And again, this is from Reddit, so take it with a grain of salt here, but I found it to be interesting. Our boss is so controlling about time management and scheduling, actually keeps track of every last second of our employees' days, including bathroom breaks. And here's what they had to say. I once worked for a man who required that every single email, by which mean literally and sincerely every single email that went out from our office, be proofread and edited by him personally before we could hit send. Ugh, that's awful. All right. We're right here. Yes, even if it was simple yes or no, and even if he was, say, on an international flight and unavailable to proofread urgent client emails for an entire day. Wow, that's something. Okay. Now that's clearly not normal, but compared to this woman's boss, mine was disarmingly normal. She's got a great job, great pay and everything, but with one huge problem. My manager is absolutely psychotic about time management. And when she says psychotic, she means psychotic, frankly, probably grounds for a lawsuit. This week, she started keeping a literal spreadsheet of everyone's bathroom breaks. Oh man, that's just terrible. Not even joking, the manager literally times how long they're away from their desk and then emails them about it later. Those emails include notifications about exceeding average bathroom time. Please read that again. Make sure you're grasping the schedule, but also has averages. Anyway, the worker recently received notification that she took 3 bathroom breaks totaling 17 minutes, which is 5 minutes longer than the team average of 12 minutes, and that she needs to be mindful of productivity metrics. Don't worry, it gets more insane. When I confronted her about it, she had the audacity to suggest I schedule my bathroom needs during my lunch break to maximize my working hours. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something here. Now there are places where this is an issue, and I get all that. Where there's if you are in, let's say, manufacturing, quick serve, things where you need to be present and available for either in the manufacturing piece to ensure that the line is doing its thing, or quick serve, there's that. But if you're in an office environment, you're expected to manage your time effectively, right? So just, yeah, it's super creepy on this. All right. Woman wrote, it's a ma'am, that's not how again, she had to tell her, like, that's not how the human body works. And she said a few other things on there. Anyways, productivity metrics. I would love to know how you're getting any work done whatsoever, given how up to date you are on the comings and goings of the staff's bladders and bowels. absolutely inconceivable that someone would have the audacity to scold someone for spending too much time in the bathroom when the entire basis on which she's able to pass judgment is that she's sitting at her desk literally compiling spreadsheets about pee breaks. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just go back here. I think this is probably the here is again, it's not like I need to talk about this and say what would I do in this situation. Moreover, that's not as from the employee piece, right? But this is a manager. The conversation I would be having with the boss, the manager in this case, like, hey, this is just not cool to do this. But what would be also like, what's driving this? What is your boss, right? And this behavior is coming from the managers, that manager's boss. I guarantee you, where they are not producing for whatever reason at the level that that next level boss is expecting, therefore getting poked on productivity. Like that's what's happening here. So I would be asking the question to that person, to that manager, say, hey, I got a recommendation for you. How about you bring the team together and we have a conversation about what it is you're actually needing to see for deliverables. Like, what do you need from us? Because right now we're delivering. Yet if you're coming in here and telling us, here's the tracking that's going on, just explain to us why you're doing the tracking you're doing. And let's see if we together as a team can figure out what we can do better, right? To help you meet the metrics that you're trying to get to, rather than tracking us without talking to us like the human beings that we are. That'd be that'd be the coaching step that I would have for this one. As someone who has been micromanaged a lot during his time, that has always been the question that I had to learn that question. It didn't like come to me poof, hey, I know how to handle this. Is over time where I learned like, hey, let me just go talk to the boss and say, why are you all up in my business? Right? I'm getting stuff done in line with what your expectations. Do we need to change the expectations, and what's driving this? That's all I'd ask. And I'd have some bosses get absolutely pissed at me about it. They'd be so frustrated about, hey, no, I just need you to do better. Those folks didn't tend to last very long. The folks that did, when I asked that question, they'd be like, well, here's what we're seeing, and this is why the boss is asking me to get this information out. Got it. Great. Let's get the team together and let's figure it out. So that's really that's the learning lesson. Like, that's the lesson we should be learning from here, folks. Not that this micromanager is an evil person. This is happening because they're getting poked and they don't have they don't have that social skill, that managerial skill figured out yet on how to bring the team together and talk to them about how the goals changed. Okay. So if you find yourself in a situation where your reporting metrics are changing, after you have clarity on it, talk to your team. Don't do it retroactively. Be proactive about it and get together. Okay. So let's go back over everything we touched on here and sum up for the day here. So again, if you made it this long, hopefully I earned your subscription, folks. And if you like what you're seeing here, be sure to share this with some of your friends out here. Leave a comment on some of the stuff that you've dealt with or what you're seeing. Again, helps the algorithm, just helps me out as a whole as I'm trying to get more information out to people here. So we talk about Starbucks, the closing their stores. They say about 1%. So it's going to be around 200 stores in the US are going to close. And like I said, most of those are going to be in areas where they've got 2 stores that are within blocks of each other, right? Because they're cannibalizing. As well as, but this is stuff that they had to submit to the SEC. So it's relevant information for investors. All right. We got back over into our WORKSLOP here. This is something I had another video about. But again, when it comes to WORKSLOP, it is your responsibility as an individual and as, if you're a manager or leader in your section, to ensure that folks are trained and they understand how they're supposed to use AI in their office, and then their responsibility to summarize, provide citation, and ensure that they're only sending relevant data up to the next level. Okay. So you've got to work on that as an individual. If you're a boss and an owner and a leader in your area, you need to set the standard for that. Okay. Like that needs to happen. And then we just talk about bathrooms. So folks, I appreciate everybody who came here, has stuck it out this long. It's been, we're in that phase right now, folks, where the economy is getting it's getting better in some areas, getting worse in others. And it looks like we have a rolling recession going on. So don't be surprised if you continue to see more and more of this doom and gloom and just weirdness in the news here. Those people who are taking their time thinking about it and working on process and communication are going to be able to get through most of these problems without any issue. Okay, that's what we're here to do. It's a big part of what I do, is help with communication and information flow and just help businesses run better. Again, if you want to learn more about how I help businesses grow faster than ever they thought possible and help build businesses that sell for high multiples, go check me out at summitbusinessguys.com.